Once a nation segregated and dominated by race and color, America seems to have come a long way from the days of the slave trade. Now led by a black African-American president, has America really changed, or is it merely a delusional facade? I'm Zareen Shadjeri, and you're watching Aperture. Well, what is for sure is that slavery, race, and color have divided America from the earliest beginnings of its history. It was a major issue in the Civil War, as well as in the Dred Scott Court decision of 1857, which was a key factor leading up to that war between the states. Now, almost half a century from the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and with a black president in the White House, America is still witnessing racial unrest. In this week's documentary, Press TV's very own Marzia Hashemi has gone to Ferguson, Missouri, to look into long-standing racial tensions in the United States. Stay with us.
On May 1961, American astronaut Alan Shepard piloted the first U.S. manned mission into space. Americans looked up to the skies with optimism of discovering new horizons, new possibilities. Well, some Americans anyway. Because at the same time of this hope for some, there was despair for many who had a different reality. It was a society of black and white, stark contrast of a segregated society, separate but definitely not equal. What do we aspire for when we brag about conquering space, but at the same time want to conquer and rule over others? Who are we when we are proud of going towards the stars but continue to create havoc on Earth? No other species on Earth except mankind treat their own the way we do. Until it was decided by the people that it was time for a change, blacks started to strike and take to the streets to try to bring about the more equal society.
We will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. We'll be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
Ultimately, Dr. King was able to get the Civil Rights Act signed by the president, and around 50 years later, this would lead to having a black president in the White House. So, was King's dream achieved?
Murder, kill, kill, it's a war in the streets. Living in the end times, revelations I speak, it's going down. I'm ready, it's going down. I'm ready, it's going down. I'm ready, it's going down. I'm ready. Murder, kill, kill, it's a war in the streets. Living in the end times, revelations I speak, it's going down. I'm ready, it's going down. I'm ready, it's going down. I'm ready, it's going down. I'm ready. They claim they shot up Bin Laden, like that's making life better. Penitentiaries filled up with more blacks than mascara. Who really running the world? Damn show ain't America. Hope you ready for war. Hope your people's prepared. I'll be the first one to say it. This country headed for doom, and the government know it. That's why his ass on the moon. But I'm supposed to be stupid, filled up with weed and liquor, while my people get poorer and you bastards get richer. Hold your eyes open widely, cause I'm painting a picture. Every day on the news is getting bigger and clearer. Tornadoes ripping through cities, earthquakes and hurricanes, floods. And the media sugarcoat what they know coming up. Murder, murder, kill, kill. It's a war in the streets. Living in the end times, revelations I speak. It's going down. I'm ready. 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 Murder, murder, kill, kill. It's a war in the streets. Living in the end times, revelations I speak. It's going down. I'm ready. It's going down. I'm ready. It's going down. I'm ready. It's going down.
Missouri, a state which was not only a slave state but was the last one to outlaw slavery. A state of historical significance because though it was a slave state, it bordered free regions. Missouri, a state where St. Louis and Ferguson are located. Missouri, like other parts of the country, was built on the backs of black slaves who provided the labor for the new land, but who definitely did not share in its opportunities. And speaking of slaves, are you familiar with the story of Dred Scott, who was the symbol of black resistance in the past? Interesting, Dred Scott, you now have a main street in your name. Actually, it is near the courthouse where you contested being a slave in 1857. Remember walking up these steps and thinking, what would come? Will they decide in your favor? Will you be considered a human being? Will they give you the freedom that God had given you, but the white man had taken away? You were going up against a system which believed in the superiority of whites, but you insisted on your rights to be free even based on their own laws. But would they be fair? Could they give you the freedom that you deserve? How does it feel, Dred Scott, to be facing your enemies and to have your fate of freedom being in their hands?
Everyone please rise for the Honorable Judge to take his seat. This court will come to order. Scott is suing his owner, Mr. Sanford, to be a free man.
I own Dred Scott. He is my slave. He is a Negro and has no rights.
Why can't I be free? I live in a free state, and according to the law, I'm not a slave.
We worry every day that maybe our owner will sell one of us and divide our family. I have kids. Why can't we live like all of you?
But you are not like us. You are a Negro. According to the U.S. Supreme Court, a Negro cannot sue because he is not considered a citizen. You have no rights, which a white man has to respect.
It's like that for me, it's like that for you. Eye for an eye. I got a phone call from my daddy. I said hello, he said hello, but he said it's Sally. Told me the police just Stanley shot him 6 times. I started sweating a teardrop, I'm finna lose my mind. My lord, I'm trying my best not to go to war. The president and the police got me feeling scarred. And I ain't worried about no prison bars or cop cars, cause I'ma ride until I die, live by the sword. Can't understand why they shot him down. 17 in the burial ground is going down. In my town, they shooting first and asking questions later. Another hurts, my little brother gonna meet his maker. I say a prayer to my Savior, may you take his soul. Cause it's a cold, cruel world living in the mold. You never know when your time gon' come. Nowadays, you gotta pack a gun. They tryna eliminate the whole black race. Even
Your mom made that?
Yes, She just made this. He wound up, if you can see, the dark spot, I think it's right in here, right here. See the dark right there?
Yeah.
This is about where his head was lying.
Oh, man.
The truck was pouring about right here.
Okay, so we know what they're saying that. Did you see Mike put his hands in the air?
He had them basically like this.
He had his hands up.
Right. He had his hands up. After he hit him there, is when he turned, because he looked like damn, I've been shot. He was standing right there. The man had his hands, he didn't have them all the way up in the air. He had them shoulder length, but he had them out. Like, okay, you got me. I'm giving up. And when he stepped off there, when he said, get down, because Mike was coming forward, he shot him. It was murder.
So why do you think nobody's been indicted?
The prosecuting attorney gave a description, and if you listen to him, he was talking more as a defense lawyer, not as a prosecuting attorney. His father was killed by a black man.
The prosecutor.
We knew from Jump Street that man was not going to be prosecuted. His mother stood right there. Tape was from that tree around. She had to sit there and watch her son laying in the street in the heat for 4.5 hours.
He is one of the many eyewitnesses who said that the killing of Mike Brown was murder and that Mike had his hands in the air. However, there were no cameras rolling to capture the actual moment when Mike was killed. But cameras were rolling here, though it seems surreal, where another black man was executed. In the killing of blacks by police, rarely is anyone indicted for murder. Also, in the case of Mike Brown, his killer, Darren Wilson, was never charged. Brown is dead, and Wilson became a millionaire from contributions by some whites. Some of these same people showed their support for police by putting up signs, "I love Ferguson."
You can't just charge him anyway just because what happened was tragic. And that was the decision that was made, and I have complete confidence and stand fully behind the decision that was made by the Justice Department on that issue.
Make absolutely sure that any president that's ever elected was not elected by the people. He was picked by the private organizations and corporations. He has to take care of them. He doesn't have to take care of you.
Though blacks continue to be targets of police brutality, this does not stop them from trying to organize to fight against this oppression. One such group is this one near Ferguson. They concentrate on resistance and education as the keys to their liberation.
I dehypnotize the masses that has been put to sleep by constant hypnotic suggestions, by the systems strategically constructed silent weapons that electromagnetically attract our eyes and glue them to the television. Ears are tuned into radio frequencies permeating confusing negative energies, conjuring visions telling lies to our minds, seducing commercials that masterfully advertise, subliminally appealing to the third eye, grabbing our attention and feeding our desires to buy.
My father and his family were victims of the riots in East St. Louis in 1917. Slave name of Catherine. I was named after my grandmother, who died getting across the river with her children on a raft. The system helps breed segregation and racism. We cannot be blind and ignorant to racism. It's here. We're not wild animals, but we have been domesticated and bred in such a manner that we don't have the ability to stand up for what is right. So I don't see how working within the system is going to make a change. I think we have to develop a whole new approach.
The death of Michael Brown, you thought what? What came to your mind?
Fear. I have grandsons. I made it through with my husband and my brothers, but I have grandsons. I had daughters. I had asked God to give me daughters. I didn't want them to face what I saw black men face. Now I have grandsons. It struck fear. Then it made me angry to do something. I'm looking at the police all the time over my shoulder. I don't feel safe.
No, bus. A2 right there. I came over in the shade too, got to go do something. All right, sounds good.
Two types of people that I worry about when I walk the street. That's a criminal, and that's the police. With a criminal, I know I can defend myself, but with the police, you know, even if I try to defend myself, I will be killed.
Grabs it. That's when two officers split off to take her into custody, while another four to continue to struggle with the man. The video shows four officers trying to hold the man down. Then you hear a taser being fired, and then suddenly there are at least 5 shots at extremely close range.
It's so strong, the hate for black life, for black men, for black people.
So when you saw, for example, with Mike Brown being killed,
I saw myself. Just him laying there in the middle of the street those 4.5 hours. I saw myself dead in the street.
When the Michael Brown incident and Eric Garner and all of that happened, I didn't expect a reaction. Like, when people were protesting, that's when I joined in. It was ironic because the night of the indictment, there was and he's like, do you think he'll be indicted? And I told him, no, he is not going to be indicted. If you read a history book, you know he's not going to be indicted, but nobody was going to be going to prison anytime soon. So many people, they don't know how lack of their history affects them. Harriet Tubman trying to free enslaved Africans. She could only help free some. The rest are like, I'm too scared, I'm not gonna go anywhere. Why don't you give yourself the best so you can give it to your children? Okay, the schools are closing down. We have carpenters in our community. We could just build a school. We have teachers there. We could have them teach at the school. We have to get a point where we see the resources and talents that we have and just use them. Because I've been in a lot of groups and all they do is talk about the money, the money. I don't know how many millions, billions of black people, each of them give $1. Get together, set out a plan, say, you do this, you do this, you do this, it's done.
Put down them burners, boy, and build up a generation. Put down them burners, boy, and build up a generation. Put down them burners, boy, and build up a generation. Build up a generation. Build up a generation. Put down them burners, boy, and build up a generation. Put down them burners, boy, and build up a generation. Put down them burners, boy.
We always say the Black Panther Party that they can do anything they want to us. We might not be back. I might be in jail. I might be anywhere. But when I leave, you can remember I said with the last words on my lips, that I am a revolutionary. And you're going to have to keep on saying that.
Fred Hampton was a 21-year-old chairman of the Illinois Black Panthers. The Black Panther Party was striving for the independence of blacks and implemented many social programs.
December 4th, 1969, exactly 45 years ago, Chicago police came and they was going to build phone trucks. They blocked the entire block off. They pulled occupants from outside their home.
My name is Akua Njeri, formerly known as Deborah Johnson. I'm the widow of Chairman Fred Hampton.
Can you run me through that, exactly what happened?
Well, on the night of December 3rd,
someone came into the room, started shaking the chairman. Said, Chairman, wake up, the pigs was laughing.
The pigs had knocked on the front door, and Mark Clark said, who's there? And the response came back, Tommy. Mark Clark said, Tommy who? Tommy gun. They kicked the door in and just started shooting.
And I saw bullets coming from, it looked like the front of the apartment, from the kitchen area.
I could see like sparks going in front of the doorway, like shots. I could smell cordite from all the gunshots, and our bed was vibrating like this.
They kept hollering out, stop shooting, stop shooting. We have a pregnant woman, a pregnant sister in here. At the time, I was 8.5 to 9 months pregnant. My baby was to be delivered in 2 weeks.
The pregnant sister was my mother-to-be, then Deborah Johnson, now Akua Njeri. She's 8.5 months pregnant with me at the time.
Anybody that's been under gunshot know that 5 minutes is 5 hours. You think it's forever. And I found out later that this whole assassination took a total of maybe 15 minutes.
Heard the pig say, He's barely alive. He'll barely make it. They started shooting again. I heard the sister scream. They stopped shooting. Pig said, he's good and dead now. The pigs running around laughing. They were really happy, you know, talking about Chairman Fred is dead. I never saw Chairman Fred again.
And I remember saying to myself in my head, you better not stumble, you better not fall, because they will shoot you and say that you're trying to get a gun. So I'm trying to walk, I'm very pregnant, and we're coming out, and there were 2 lines of pigs I had to walk through. One of them grabbed my robe open, and they started laughing, and they said, what you know, we got a broad here. They grabbed me by the hair and slung me into the kitchen area.
As soon as Sergeant Daniel Groth and officers James Davis, who were leading our men, announced their office, occupants of the apartment attacked them with shotgun fire. The officers immediately took cover. The occupants continued firing at our policemen from several rooms within the apartment. Thereafter, 3 times, Sergeant Groth ordered all his men to cease firing and told the occupants to come out with their hands up. Each time, one of the occupants replied, shoot it out, and continued firing at the police officer.
People came through the apartment because they didn't believe the reenactment that then State's Attorney Edward Hanran was doing, where he talked about how the police were met, his brave police officers were met with a barrage of gunfire from the vicious Black Panthers. And people lined up all around the block to come through and see. And through the state's own sticks, they put these sticks in the holes. Through the trajectories of the bullets, they could see 90% of the shots were aimed at the head where Chairman Fred slept.
The account that we made public yesterday gives a detailed explanation of what happened in that apartment. I stand wholeheartedly behind it as absolutely accurate.
There is one inconsistency in, well, for example...
I do not intend to quibble about that account.
Do you intend to get at the truth?
The account that we gave of the events is the truth.
After their exhaustive review of the evidence, the grand jury deliberated over 2 days, making their final decision. They determined that no probable cause exists to file any charge against Officer Wilson and returned a no true bill on each of the 5 indictments.
Power to the people. Power to the people. Power to the people. Power you need to get out of the street immediately.
Those of you who are watching tonight understand that there's never an excuse for violence, particularly when there are a lot of people in goodwill out there who are willing to work on these issues.
I am honored to be here to break into your graduation ceremony, to reassure you and all of the men in law enforcement throughout the country of the support you have at the very highest levels in government for your work.
Back then, we called it police brutality, and a more appropriate term for it is police terrorism, because as mothers, we don't know if we send our children to the store, if they're gonna come back or not, or if they'll be shot.
Before the news in brief, we saw that the city of Ferguson, Missouri, has been a flashpoint for protests across the U.S. since the killing of Mike Brown, an unarmed Black teenager shot by a white police officer last year. And ironically, the state of Missouri has deep roots in racial conflicts. Stay with us for the rest of the program.
18 years old Vondrek Myers, who went to the store near his home to buy a sandwich, but he would never make it back home as he was shot 8 times by police outside of the store. Police say he was carrying a gun. Eyewitnesses say he had a sandwich in his hand. no one was tried for his murder. Vondret's name is added to the many others who have been recently shot by police. I wanted to talk to Vondret's parents, but between police and demonstrators, it was very difficult to do.
I'm standing here with Mr. and Mrs. Myers, who recently lost their 18-year-old son. First of all, my condolences for your loss.
Thank you.
How many children do you have?
That was our only son.
Your only son.
Wow. Only kid, actually.
Your only child. I'm really sorry to hear that. Let's take this.
They just killed him. To this day, the police still cannot articulate a reason why they stopped Vondret and his friends down the street. There was no reason for them to stop them. They initiated, Jason Flannery initiated that stop and then went on to kill him and blame it on him. Vondret was executed because he was down, unable to move when he was shot in the head. The police department has said that they don't see any need for charges to be issued. Of course, they're not going to say that. They're investigating themselves.
Right.
I believe that we must win. I believe that we will win.
But they trick us into believing I'm the solution. If you elect me, we'll all be free. It's a bunch of garbage, you know what I'm saying? I don't care, it's from the alderman, the president, and you know what people say? Well, once we get a black president, things, now the highest office in the land, right? The president. When did he address the issues of race? I mean, without beating up on black men for not being fathers, and that's, when did he address it? Ferguson, when the whole world had to address it.
And I'ma keep fighting, feet to the ground, I'ma keep striking, hands to the sky, chest held high, never saying die, never saying die. We struggle to live and live to
As
win.
violence and oppression continues against blacks, some Americans have mobilized to say they will not stand for this any longer. From Ferguson to Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, Baltimore, and beyond, Americans are demonstrating. They are blocking streets, having die-ins, and overall taking to the streets to try to bring what they call police terror to an end.
Ain't got no time for weeping, I keep my heart true. Ain't got no time for cheating, my Lord can feel me too. That's why my hands reaching, I pray I make it through and bring my family with me. The end is here, I've seen the signs, and yes, I have no fear, no doubt in my mind, I'm blessed. The only thing
Others have rallies and meetings trying to educate the masses as to the reality on the ground. At the University of Chicago, activists say they want the U.S. government to be charged with genocide for crimes that it has committed against black Americans.
American police kill a black person every 28 hours. American police kill a black person every 28 hours. While imprisoning and assassinating our civil rights warriors who fight against these same crimes. The state is responsible for torturing and displacing indigenous people with violent spiritual, physical, and sexual assault, along with poisoning all of our ecosystems. Rape is the second highest crime committed by police. 500 people tasered to death in the U.S. Over 12,000 human lives lost to police genocide. We implore this committee to seek redress for these extrajudicial, state-sanctioned executions, electrocutions, murders, and other crimes documented in our report. We charge torture. We charge genocide.
My brother and best friend was brutally battered and permanently damaged by the Chicago Police Department. The result of such damage left half of his face unrecognizable, his tongue barely attached to his mouth, 22 stitches, 2 facial fractures, bruised ribs, scrapes all over his body. I'm here to charge torture for my brother. We're here to charge torture and we're here to charge genocide.
I had some police brutality problems for a while. They've been going on for a while, whereas they were extorting me for 25% of my money, and they were using, since I wasn't going for that, they were harassing me. They were raping me in my house, videotaping me.
And tell me how you're walking with the walker now.
I'm walking with a walker because my legs have been beat when I'm sleeping. I got more than 1,000 bruise marks on my body. Every time I try to put something on paper, I'll make a report, they beat me up in the house. They'll break my house, beat my legs. They'll cut my hair, they say that this is my imagination. It's a complete system of destroying other people's lives to try to make people slaves for them. I got pictures of it. I show the doctors, I showed the FBI, police, they laughed at me. And then I told them what they did in my hospital. They said I was crazy, it didn't happen. But you can look at my belly and see that it did happen.
This has become a familiar scene in the Black community. Here is another mother who has lost her child and shows me where her son was killed. Murder, poverty, and despair has become the norm.
So you say he died here?
Yes.
Amazing grace, how sweet sound that saved a wretch like me.
Another example of this despair is the singer and rapper of this documentary, Harvey Shaw, who lost his 17-year-old brother, was killed by police.
So right now, like I said, we're going through South St. Louis, head on the Cherokee area. On Cherokee right now, the State Street area, where you have pretty much is a blend of different races, but it's also on every single state street down here is also another gang set. And you have a lot of Hispanics and African Americans over in this area down here. About to South St. Louis, after like 1 o'clock, I believe it's like 1 o'clock, they have a curfew. And that's for all the people over there, especially for young black males, that if you out on foot, even if you're at the gas station, they calling them jump out boys pull up in those SUVs or them vans. And if you out there, that's subject to arrest. And really what they looking for is just warrants. I mean, if you don't have no warrants, they probably gonna search you. If you got a cigarello, that's paraphernalia. Some reason they gonna have to incarcerate you.
I got a phone call from my daddy. I said hello, he said hello, but he said it's Sally. Told me the police just Stanley shot him 6 times. I started sweating a teardrop, I'm finna lose my mind. My lord, I'm trying my best not to go to war. The president and the police got me feeling scarred. And I ain't worried about no prison bars or cop cars, cause I'm a rider till I die, live by the sword. Can't understand why they shot him down. 17 in the burial ground is going down. In my town, they shoot first and ask questions later.
Well, I got a phone call from my daddy. That was in 2002. I picked up the phone, and it was something different in his tone that I can just hear. They got Stanley. I'm like, what you mean they got Stanley? Who got Stanley? Police. They killed him. And I just remember it felt like somebody just took my whole heart and just pushed it up my stomach and was like, what you gonna do about it? This is the life you know that you're living in. Now it hit your little brother. All I could see was his big old smile that he had on his face. Never was a negative person, always was smiling and laughing. Now he's gone off the face of the earth. that somebody willingly took the life of my brother who was law enforcement. Declared war so publicly, so intensely on the young black male across America. And it was so visible on how they let them just lay in the street. Like, we're gonna show you, we're gonna let you soak this in, young black man, that we are here to annihilate. We're here to destroy. A police officer is a 2014. Go back in 1714, he was called an overseer. Now he's called an officer. One had a whip, now this one has a gun. The whip would just get you back into chains, and if you talk after that, you get hung. You get castrated. Now, you just dead. They don't even want you around because they figure you survived through all that torture and you still out here, we just gonna kill you now. That's the picture that's getting painted. This is not my system. It's not good for my system. This system is not good for anybody's system that's created or designed to have any type of love inside of them. This system is designed to, you either gonna get aboard the hate train or you gonna get annihilated. And they're making that very clear.
I don't have any fear of any reprisals from the government or anyone else. I do believe that there are those out there that are watching and maybe would take action, but I don't concern myself with them. I just concern myself with doing the work, for this movement. My grandfather was asked the same question, whether he was fearful. And he said that he was probably a dead man already, but he said that he had absolutely no fear of anyone or anything, other than Allah.
I'ma keep going and I'ma keep fighting. Feet to the ground, I'ma keep striking. Head to the sky, chest held high. Never say and die, never say and die. And I'ma keep going and I'ma keep fighting. Feet to the ground, I'ma keep striking. Head to the sky, chest held high. Never say and die, never say and die.
The history of blacks is filled with resistance groups which try to liberate themselves. One example of this is the Black Liberation Group MOVE. In 1985, this group based in Philadelphia, which was active in organizing its members, was surrounded by 600 federal agents and policemen and was bombed by the U.S. government, in which 11 people, including 5 kids, were killed and 66 houses destroyed.
Where governments lie, God does not lie. Where governments change, God does not change. And I'm through now. But let me leave you with one more thing. Governments fail.
Wonderful man there, Reverend Bright.
Right, and
Yeah.
who was my pastor, and he is a wonderful man. And I think that's an example of he's a pastor of a large congregation in Chicago. Reverend Wright, my pastor, who I speak about in a chapter in the book, I think represents the best of what the black church has to offer.
And the United States of America government, when it came to treating her citizens of Indian descent fairly, she failed. She put them on reservations. When it came to treating her citizens of Japanese descent fairly, she failed. She put them in internment prison camps. When it came to treating the citizens of African descent fairly, America failed. She put them in chains. The government put them on slave quarters, put them on auction blocks, put them in cotton fields, put them in inferior schools, put them in substandard housing, put them in scientific experiments, put them in the lowest paying jobs, put them outside the equal protection of the law, kept them out of their racist bastions of higher education, and locked them into positions of hopelessness and helplessness. The government gives them the drugs, builds bigger prisons, passes a 3-strike law, and then wants us to sing God Bless America? No, no, no. Not God Bless America. God Damn America. America that's in the Bible for killing innocent people. Goddamn America for treating her citizens as less than human. Goddamn America as long as she tries to act like she is God and she is supreme.
I've known Reverend Wright for almost 20 years. The person I saw yesterday was not the person that I met 20 years ago.
That Senator Barack Hussein Obama was selected before he was elected. You didn't select him, and he's accountable to those who selected him. Why do you think the banks got a bailout? Why do you think he was standing up and say, I am AIPAC? They selected him. Now, when you consider that change, who selected and why? To whom is he accountable? You better not talk about nothing black. We didn't select you for that. Here's what we selected you for. To keep in pace this system that's killing your people. I was teaching in Cape Town. I was talking on this particular morning about the difference between Western concepts of personality formation and African concepts of personality formation. The Western I just mentioned, Camus, Cartesian, I think, therefore I am. I rebel, therefore I am. I did it my way. Africans say I am because we are. It's communal, not autonomous. If you see God as white, you see God as male, you see God as up there above hierarchically, you see God as choosing you above other people, then you see other people hierarchically to be used as things not equal to you, 3/5 of men in the constitution of the country, and your theology determining your anthropology then determines your sociology. How do you order your society? You can order your society so that blacks are non-persons. So that the Dred Scott, for this project, decision makes perfectly good sense. I know rights you have. I can put on a black robe and be a preacher on the day and a white robe at night. In fact, have my lynchings on Sunday. Civil disobedience, non-violent civil disobedience to bring about change, which is what? First Sunday this month, several black churches in this nation engaged in civil disobedience. What do? They disobeyed the law about the red lights in the street. They went up and blocked traffic. Some of them powerfully for 8 minutes. That's how long it took Eric to die. And then 8 minutes they dispersed. They're making a statement, disobeying the law. You see the difference between that and staying on the sidewalk, walking down the sidewalk, obeying the police? Is it me or do you see the difference? The sit-ins, we broke the law. The law says you can't sit here. And black bodies say, yes, we can, and sat there. That's disobeying the law, all right? You walk on the sidewalk and stop at the red light. That's not disobeying. That's a peaceful, mamby-pamby, wimpy way of trying to show solidarity.
The first thing that has to happen is the conscious raising of the people. When you're involved in your own fight for liberation and freedom, it's a liberating feeling. You want to do more and more and more and more. And I always say, oh, I'm too old, I can't do this. It's something that everybody can do, whether they're young or old. People that can't walk good, they can make phone calls and tell people about different means. You know, people think the media is independent. The media is to reflect the interests of the state against the interests of the people. Malcolm X talked about when you go on a demonstration and then you go home and look at it on TV. You say, wait, is that the same demo that I was at? You look at what's happening in Ferguson. I always look at Fox News, you know, for a laugh or two, you know, because it's a whole different story that you get than what actually happened.
I think that we should realize that whatever it is that attracts us to any of these great personalities or individuals, it's like a mirror reflection. It's something that is reflected within ourselves. So we should look within ourselves and decide what we'll do. You know, each man is like a grain of salt toward the building block of civilization. So we shouldn't focus on what everybody else is or isn't willing to do, but on what we're going to do.
You have no rights which a white man has to respect, were the words spoken regarding the Dred Scott case. How far has the society come to changing that reality? How much are we willing to sacrifice? How much are we willing to give for freedom? Again, demonstrations are taking place. People are taking to the street, but will that be enough to bring the ultimate change to the U.S.? The change that will see everyone treated equally. The change which will see blacks and other minorities no longer threatened by police and the American legal system. That verdict is still out.
Those who are asking the devotees of civil rights, when will you be satisfied? We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is the victim of the unspeakable horrors of police brutality. We can never be satisfied.
Well, with the news coming in from Ferguson about the demonstrations marking the anniversary of the death of Michael Brown, it's hard to imagine that the conflicts will be resolved soon. And that's it for Aperture.